the fear of public speaking, which is everywhere for all of us, right?
Yes, yes. There is a term, the National Institute of Health has given it a term called glossophobia, is the
Okay.
fear of public speaking.
Okay.
And 70% of the country has that fear. So it is very common and it makes perfect sense. We all get
Yes.
scared. We should get scared. But you want to own the scared. You don't want the scared to own you.
Welcome to the Chasing Goalpost podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Cosgrove, and today our guest has not only mastered the art of public speaking, but is now helping others do the same. As the CEO and founder of the Star Speaker Academy, she has transformed her 25-year career as a sales and marketing executive into a mission. That mission is empowering professionals to own the stage with confidence. From delivering high-profile speeches to audiences of 25 to commanding the attention of 3,000, she knows exactly what it takes to captivate a room and leave a lasting impression. Linda Erickson, welcome to the Chasing Goalpost podcast.
Hey, Jess, good morning. Welcome to you.
Awesome. We're excited for you to be here, and we're really looking forward to this session to talk about public speaking. It's such an important topic for our careers and, essentially everything we do. But maybe let's start with this, Linda. What sparked your passion for public speaking, and how did your journey lead to the founding of the Star Speaker Academy?
Mhm. Well, Dustin, my speaking journey literally began in high school. I I competed in several speech tournaments, and then I was also president of several clubs. So what would happen is I would be leading and presenting in those formulas. But then on the other side, I was also a majorette. Now, of course, when I was leading the band and entertaining at halftime, I wasn't speaking, but I really started seeing the power of presence and how that nonverbal communication that we delivered. Sometimes my favorite word is sometimes what's not being said speaks louder than what's being said. And then that all started accumulating. Then for a while when I was in California, I had a talk show called Empowering Women. This is long before technology was around. So I was on camera, both in studio and on live feeds. And so I saw that whole side of it all. But the Star Speaker Academy was born when I was really in my sales and marketing career, because I was pitching and presenting all the time. And what I found was a lot of my colleagues approached it very cavalier, just kind of off the seat of their pants, winging it. And they might get that PowerPoint deck and never even practice it, and then they would get up there and do it. And I saw a real need, because what I really discovered is when we prepare and practice, we then can deliver impact, because it's suddenly not about ourselves any longer. It becomes about the audience. So therefore, the mission of the Star Speaker Academy is to empower you to deliver unforgettable messages.
I love that. To deliver unforgettable messages. So we're going to keep that as the theme of this podcast as we go, because I think everybody listening really needs to think about that is when we're speaking, how do you stand out in a crowd with everybody else, right? So, well, Linda, you and I share a passion and appreciation for public speaking. Obviously, that's why you're here. But perhaps, as I look back at my public speaking career, one of the most influential groups that impacted my public speaking and ultimately my career is Toastmasters. And at times over the years, I've received comments from people saying, hey, really like the way you public speak and engage the room. And I think what people don't see is that 100 plus speeches over 2 to 3 years at Toastmaster events, competitions, group settings. And so I think what I'm trying to say here is there's really no magic bullet. And improvement in public speaking takes practice, and it takes work, and it takes reps, just like anything else. So maybe could you share some feedback or maybe a story from your side of how maybe Toastmasters impacted you or helped you along your journey?
Absolutely. So I credit Toastmasters, doesn't it, a lot to my public speaking improvement. And in fact, when I was vice president of sales at the convention center in DC, I started a chapter. We called it Event Speak. And it was there I earned my competent communicator credential from Toastmasters. But the one exercise I loved, where I felt was so valuable, was table topics. So you remember this routine. We had to walk up to the podium. The Toastmaster of the day gave you that question. You had to speak 1 to 2 minutes. And I'm telling you, it was the best training for thinking on your feet. especially when you had a question where your mind went blank and you didn't know what to do. You still had to come forth. So I can relate that in a real life experience. So fast forward, I'm at the convention center and we're hosting the Greater Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, their annual ambassador gala. So I was going to be giving opening comments on behalf of the convention center. So like any good Toastmaster, there I am. I'm on the stage before, I'm at the podium. I practiced my talk anyway, but I practiced it more. I had AV do an early check. I had the room down, the tables for 300 people. I was ready. Get up there that night to the podium, and unexpectedly, there's this huge white binder that took 3 full quarters of it. Okay, obviously it wasn't there before. So I put my notes down, open my folder, and then those notes go flying off into the stage. And I stayed calm and carried on. And the trick was, there wasn't any trick, like you said, I had practiced a lot before, but I was able to really take those table topics training and just continue to move forward with grace and confidence. So at the end, one of my board members was in the audience, right? And he comes up to me and he said, Linda, okay, we were all on bated breath for a minute going, oh my God, how's she going to do it? He said, and you just carried on. He said it was impressive. So that is, to me, one of my best examples of taking a Toastmasters tips, so to speak, practice and putting it into the real world. And it happens a lot. It can happen a lot.
I love that example because I mean, it was all about preparation for you there, right? You'd been there before. You have a frame of reference on, hey, I've been here where I'm kind of off the cuff, and so I got pivot and make this work, and obviously produce an engaging speech. I'm sure. So
Yes.
well, good. Well, listen. In addition to the Star Speaker Academy, we understand, and this is exciting. You're also launching a book, I believe, September of 2025.
Correct.
Titled Top 25 Speaker Pro Tips. Is that correct?
Star speaker power tips.
Star Speaker Power Tips. Okay.
Yep.
So my understanding is the book encompasses really 3 themes.
Correct.
So without giving too much information, obviously we want people to go out and get the book, but could you maybe give us a sneak peek into what those 3 themes are?
Absolutely. So the 3 themes are power of preparation, crafting compelling content, and engaging your audience. So each section has X amount of chapters. And then the wonderful thing, though, Dustin, is that the book is self-contained where it stands alone. So let's say you're having to give a speech to an audience with cultural diversity. We have a whole chapter dedicated to that. How do you prepare for that? What do you look at? What do you do? So you can pull it out and just use that. Or, of course, you don't have the whole book per se. But a little bit about each chapter, each section. So again, power of preparation. I think already you know how much I am an advocate for that. But we really look at some of the things we look at is how often people a lot of times don't go preview venues before they speak. They maybe show up 10, 15 minutes. And there's a lot to do that, to really be prepared to do that. So that's one aspect we look at. We also address some physical aspects of preparing. We as speakers don't normally take the time. When you think of an actor or a musician or an art, they're going to practice, an athlete practice before they go out. So we kind of really take a look at that. Crafting compelling content. We're clear that content is king, but what's integral is being able to take your central theme with some core tools and make sure that ideas you're going to speak about is worth sharing. And then we wrap in opening, closing, storytelling. So there's 8 chapters on that. And then the last section, engaging your audience. And here it's like I love the term called showtime. So you're ready to roll, but how do you really have that strong stage presence? We take a look at that. We take a look at nonverbal communication. Again, powerful tool. Filler words. Okay. That kind of goes back to Toastmaster days.
Yep.
So I have this habit of counting filler words. Okay. I'm going to admit it. But let me tell you the diff so I was at a board meeting at the convention center one time. One of our EVPs was standing up giving maybe a 6-minute presentation. He had 77 ohms.
Mhm.
Okay. Completely unconscious to it. But you don't think that matters? Yes. And most of the time, people have no clue they're doing it. So again, integral. So that's kind of the sneak peek of
No,
some of
that's
the
awesome. And for people that aren't aware, in Toastmasters, we are trained heavily to I think we have people that are rating you and providing you that number on a 5-minute speech or whatever it may be, and so you get very quickly trained to not have filler words and to limit those, I guess, maybe is what I'm trying to say, so well, that's interesting. One of the things on power preparation, before we move on to the next question, that's interesting. So what you're saying there is when you go to check out your platform, your stage, whatever that may be. So if you're say you're going to an auditorium or you're going to a gymnasium, you're going somewhere, you would actually go to that location ahead of the speech and kind of get an idea of where the audience is going to be, what the stage looks like, where the
correct.
podium is, those kind of things.
Mhm. And of course, if you're coming in from out of town, you're gonna arrive maybe the day before or let's say your talk's at 9, just get there early.
Mhm.
And because you and I both know when you're talking about AV tech, we're talking about if you have to check your technology from sound and or especially when you're doing any kind of a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, mandatory. What we have 2 chapters dedicated, one just to live with technology and then online with technology because those can bite you hard. And we wanna make sure that the speaker owns that space and that they're prepared for that, or they have the SWAT team behind them that's making sure that it's running smoothly. Because, it'll kill it or cure it very quickly.
I love that advice, and I think, we all think about this. We sit in our let's say you're in a hotel room and you're practicing your speech and you're going through that, but we never a lot of us never do is we actually go and actually physically check out the location. So, it's a very simple piece of advice, but a very impactful piece of
Mhm.
advice, so we appreciate that.
Especially the small things. The small things you don't think of that really will turn the corner.
For sure. That probably helps a little bit with visualization too, if you can visualize yourself on that stage in front of those people ahead of time as well, so okay. Well, we've got through the themes of the book, so thank you for sharing those, but there's a few topics here I'd like to dive into because I think our audience is gonna be really interested in a few of these topics within that essentially fall within these themes. And I think the first one, we all have been through this, and that's mastering the butterflies, or said differently, the fear of public speaks everywhere for all of us, right?
Yes. There is a term under the National Institute of Health has given it a term called glossophobia. It is the fear of public speaking, right? And 70% of the country has that fear. So it is very common. But one of my very favorite quotes about public speaking comes from Edward Murrow. Now, he is known as the father of broadcasting. And he said, one, the best speakers know enough to be scared. The difference between the pros and the novices is that the pros have trained the butterflies to fly in formation. And it makes perfect sense. We all get scared. We should get scared. But you wanna own the scared. You don't want the scared to own you.
Absolutely.
So there's a
Let's oh,
couple
what
ways. Go
sorry,
ahead.
I wanna come back to that 70%. I think that's
Mm,
that's an important topic for the audience because essentially what we're saying here, everyone, is you're not alone, right? 70% of the world is scared of public speaking. So this is an important topic because I know most people that I talk to, that is one of their biggest concerns is the fear of just getting up there. So you're not alone, everyone. And sorry, Linda, I'll let you get back to it, but I wanted to call that percentage out because I important.
So I wanna share with you, Jerry Seinfeld has this great kind of little joke about it. So he goes, "Did you know that in America, the number 1 fear is public speaking? Death is number 2." Death is number 2? Does that seem right? So in other words, what you're saying is when you go to a funeral, the average American would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
Interesting. Yeah. That is that's a good
And that humor is so right on.
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I've never really thought about it that way, to be honest with you. So but I think you wanted dive into some things in around with the fear and maybe some
Yes.
pieces?
So under mastering the butterflies, again, there's 3 things we look at: visualization, diaphragmatic breathing, and vocal exercises. So today I'm going to highlight 2 of them. So the first one being visualization. Now, Dustin, did you know there is no difference between thinking or doing? The mind has no distinction between the 2. And that sometimes seems hard to believe, but it's true. So if you visualize before you go speaking, up and speaking, giving a speech, we have this amazing exercise, several of them that we work through with you on that, and then also tapping into the 5 senses that relate to that make it very, very empowering. So along with that, we also know that athletes use visualization a lot. So Michael Phelps, that household name for all of us,
Mhm.
he is a big proponent of visualization. So this was he would do before a swim. He would visualize himself tapping the wall first, then people applauding him, and then standing up and receiving the gold medal, which obviously it worked. He did it 23 times.
I think that one's validated.
Yes, that one's valid. So again, we don't think of using this skill set,
Right.
but it's extremely valuable. So we work on that area. The next one is vocal exercises. Again, how many of us, before we speak, warm up our voices? Probably few. And so I know you've agreed to do some exercises with me.
Yeah, Linda's gonna put me through the paces here.
I'm going to put him through the rigor here. Now, let me tell you, these things, they're funny. They're kind of comical, but they work. And the great thing is you can do them right before you go on stage or wherever. You can go into the bathroom or behind the plant or whatever. So the first one, I'm only going to give you 2 in this category. We do quite a few of them. So the first one's called bubble gum. And this whole thing is to really work your jaw muscles. So what it is, so I'm going to do it first, and then Dustin, I'm going to have you do it also. So the bubble gum is, imagine you have 10 pieces of bubble gum in your mouth and you chew. So it looks like this. Okay, your turn.
Really get my jaw going here.
So, but can't you feel just loosening up even
Yeah,
at
good
smart?
point.
30-second minimum.
30 seconds.
We're not asking you to do it for 10 hours or anything, 30 seconds. Okay. So that's one. Next one's called lip trills. And this helps to loosen up the lips. These things that we don't think about are lip trills. So this is like a horse blowing through his mouth. So this is what this one looks like.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Your turn.
Okay. All right, are you ready?
You're ready. But again, can you feel your lips loosening?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. That's
And
it's a very interesting one.
as silly as they are, another thing, it's funny. I notice when I do these before I present, it kind of makes you laugh at yourself a little bit. There's a different kind of a relaxation that accompanies it that you wouldn't think would be part of it.
I think there's gonna be a few people laughing at this one as I just went through the a little comic relief for everybody here today, Linda. That's good.
That's right. That's right. Hey, humor is valuable.
Absolutely.
So now we're going to do tongue twister. Okay.
Oh.
Now, of course, we know these tongue twisters are for enunciation and pronunciation. And the worst thing is to get, when you get on words, when you stumble on words, it throws a speaker off. So the ability to kind of use these practice. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, because I'm going to have to read these. I have to read them to make sure I get them right. Okay. How can a clam cram in a clean cream can?
How can a clam cram in a clean cream can?
Yeah, that one's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not saying that one fast. That's gonna be a tough one to say fast.
Okay, next one.
Okay.
You know New York. You need New York. You need unique New York.
Okay. You know New York. You need New York. You know you need unique New York.
Yes, that last one's the toughest part, isn't it?
Yeah, that you know you need unique New York is had my jaw kind of already shaking there a little bit. So,
That got me warmed up that jaw a little bit, right?
so there you go. Maybe that helps.
Okay, last but not least, I slit the sheet. The sheet I slit, and on the slitted sheet I sit.
Oh wow. I slit the sheet I slit, and on the slitted sheet I sit.
Rup.
Wait. And on the slitted sheet I sit. Okay.
We know how easy that one could turn into.
So I'm seeing a pattern here. So the first two were a little bit, I wouldn't say they're easy, but they were somewhat general. But then that third kind of part of those was really unique and complex, which I struggle with the third kind of part of that. Is that by design?
Yes.
Okay.
Kind of good to graduate things as they go.
Okay. Well, I want
You
everybody
can
else in
see
the audience
that.
as we're listening to that to do this while we're doing it. So
That's right, they can have fun. They can play along with it.
while you're driving your car on a long road trip here, and if your uncle might be sitting beside you and you start doing a horse sound through your mouth.
She's gonna go, "What's happened to you?" On that note, I wanna deflect to something. If anyone listening has commutes, okay? A lot of people aren't commuting anymore, but what I used to do when I lived in Alexandria and worked in the district, so I had to my commute was about 45 minutes every day. I would practice my speeches driving.
Hmm.
It was a great rehearsal time to really make use of that time. It was just me, myself, and I, correct? But I noticed the value of that, and so I just throw that out as a little time twister. Talk about a time twister to really make valuable in your
Yeah,
life.
valuable use of your time, and so we're all sitting windshield time. A lot of people listen to podcasts while they're commuting up, listen to the radio. But if you've got a speech coming up, or you're public speaking that day, or engaging an audience, perfect opportunity
Yeah,
to use the windshield as your audience. So,
fits
well, let's move on to another piece that I think people are going to be in part, or sorry, people are going to be interested in, and that is we talk about this quite a bit in sales and marketing. So you're very well aware of this, but the art of storytelling is really so impactful. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
sure. So stories bring your presentation to life. They're really meant to captivate, to stimulate emotions, and to influence. And yet, stories also, Dustin, make you feel the message. So, when you're preparing your presentations, ask yourself, what's my story? What's my story, either personally or I want to bring into whatever that core central theme is of my topic? And there's many different ways you can do it. You can do a persuasion. Maybe you can do an emotional connection. You can do inspiration, motivation. I mean, there's many different ways to approach it. But I want to share one with you, a category I call breaking the barriers.
Okay.
So I'm going to share a little mini story about that. So it is 1955, and Emmett Tills is 14 years old and was murdered in Mississippi. He was abducted, tortured, and lynched, and thrown into the Tallahatchie River. His alleged crime was that he was flirting with a white woman.
Hmm.
When his body was transported back to Chicago, his mother, Mamie Tills, said, "I want an open casket. I want the world to see what happened to my son." But in this, she wanted to drive a message home to America that American racism and the vulnerabilities of American democracy. Thus began the civil rights movement.
Wow.
So that story you can see that story is kind of intense, right?
Very intense, I would say. Yeah,
But when you said if you want to talk about breaking barriers somewhere, did it catch your attention?
for sure. Yeah,
What you
especially near to the gate.
right? You go what? And so that's the power of a story in driving your message. If you can correlate something to your topic, to do those things, like I said, make you feel the message, to stimulate, get those emotions going, influence. It's not just saying, just this casual thing I did last Friday night. It's
Yeah.
really crafting them to be that way.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I think that's a great example as well, because I was kinda sitting here thinking to myself, "Wow, where are we going here, and what's happening to this gentleman and Cy?" And, obviously, it's a heart-wrenching story, but, it really does capture I'm struggling for words right now. I should be table.
What's the power of storytelling?
Yeah, the power of storytelling, agreed.
Mhm.
So okay. So crafting compelling content is one of the themes. And I think when we, throughout Toastmasters, we have the opening and closing and really engaging your audience throughout the entire presentation and the importance of that. So maybe dive into that for the audience.
Wanna give it to you kind of in demonstrating. I kinda wanna do a little mini talk so that you can see it. So the first thing, I wanna look at is the power of power opening.
Mhm.
Okay. Delivery, it's only everything. Delivery, it's only everything. What if I told you that is not so much about what you said, but how you said it that makes a difference? I have a dream. Martin Luther King, 1963. Mr. Gorbachev, take down that wall.
Mm.
Ronald Reagan, 1987. Yes, we can. Barack Obama, 2008. These famous speeches would have been forgettable had it not been for their dynamic delivery. Delivery isn't just the icing on the cake, it's the entire recipe. So that's a power opening.
Well, I think, as I think about this, I've always said this, especially coming out of Toastmasters, you can have a really boring, general, dull topic, but
Mhm.
an engaging speaker and a beautiful delivery, and you will keep your audience engaged. Or you can have a really exciting topic that everybody's interested in, but a really dull speaker, and you're gonna lose the audience. So I think that's kinda what you're saying here by delivery, it's only everything.
Yes, and having that power opening to bring it to life. So always think of, but we have like 2 seconds to capture people's attention. Even before we open our mouth and walk on stage, people are evaluating us. For, I don't like what she has on. Oh, she's whatever it is. That's how our brains work. So we have to manage those things that we come into along the way.
Oh, that's great.
So the next part of this, I want to share a little bit of that combination of crafting compelling content and engaging your audience. So it is a little bit of a continuation about delivery is everything. Okay, here we go. I'm going to take you back to September 26th, 1960. It's the very first live televised debate between John F. Kennedy and Richard M. Nixon. Now, at this time, 90% of Americans now had televisions. So for the Gen X and millennial crowd, let me tell you, people didn't have televisions back then. We were just getting them. Remember when you got your first smartphone? That's what was happening in 1960. Okay. And so 70 million people were going to be watching this live. So at the beginning of the debate, JFK was behind in the polls. Nixon was at 53%, and uh, Kennedy was at 47. And Americans were a little bit worried about Kennedy because he was 43 years old. He was young. So Nixon shows up in Chicago, and he was haggard. He had been punching it hard on the campaign trail for like the last week. He was just recently off a knee surgery, and so he wasn't feeling that great. And his team, 5 hours before the debate, had, like, pushed him hard, questions and answers and questions and answers and what to do. So when he got up to the podium that night, he was just you could tell he was moving like this, podium, he was patting his forehead, he was sweating, wasn't used to those studio lights in his face. He had on a gray suit and a gray background, so he melted into it. And as brilliant as Nixon was brilliant. He was very cogent in his communication. And he used facts a lot, statistics and facts. And suddenly the people in the audience were going, he's kind of cold and calculating like those statistics is what they were imagining. Okay. Or determining. Next up, Kennedy's up. So Kennedy had been on the campaign trail too, not as intense, not as long. He had just last stop had been through California. So he had a little bit of a slight tan on him. And he had met with the producers prior to talking about his positioning, his lighting, camera angles. He wore a dark blue suit because he knew that gray background so he wouldn't mold into it. And he was very composed, very natural, very, again, bright man. Very, very his answers were currently right on, but he had this emotional connection with the audience. People ask ourselves of, can I trust this person? And so this connection became very, very solid. And as the result goes, so Kennedy understood the emotional connection to make with an audience. And hence, at the end of the debate, Kennedy was favored. But that night, Nixon's running mate was Henry Cabot Lodge. He was watching it live in Texas. And at the end of the debate, he said, that son of a bitch just lost us the election.
Interesting.
Point being, it was because of Nixon's delivery.
So he knew.
So my point is, delivery, it's only everything.
Okay, well, if that doesn't get the point across, I'm not sure what will, right? When you're losing an election over a delivery of a speech, right? So.
And I want to make reference to what happened in 24, Trump and Biden. It was his delivery that night that had him step down. So as we look at these famous figures this way, but it's no different for all of us. Of course, that's my point, is that it's the same for all of us to really think about these things and prepare like you're a giant.
Well, Linda, this has been great. I mean, sharing all these insights are obviously extremely powerful. And I think the headline here for us too is what we've discussed to date is really the tip of the iceberg. And there's clearly a lot more for us to learn. So whether we pick up your book or engage with your company, the Star Speaker Academy, maybe for those in the audience that would, like to connect with you personally or connect with your Star Speaker Academy business, what's the best way to do so?
Probably go to my website, www.starspeakeracademy.com. And there's a place in there where you can send information to. Or also, if you want to email me, my email is linda@starspeakeracademy.com.
Okay. And on social media, is LinkedIn probably the best place to get a hold of you?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the audience's awareness, we'll link the website, the Star Speaker Academy, as well as Linda's LinkedIn profile so that everybody can have quick access to reaching out and connecting with you. And then I'm guessing, Linda, too, as we think about the book, as the book launches in that, I think we're targeting a September timeframe. I'm assuming you're going to be promoting the book on social, things of that nature, so people would be able to understand when that book's coming out. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, listen, the thing about this is we've talked a lot about themes today. And I'm going to stay on that topic per the theme of this podcast. We can't wind down the episode without asking Linda Erickson, what are you ultimately chasing?
Mm-hmm. I'm chasing impact. I'm chasing the moment when a speaker walks off the stage and knows they just didn't deliver a speech. They ignited something in their audience. Public speaking isn't just about words. It's about our connection, our influence, making a difference. I want to be able to support as many people as I can to step into that power. This is what I'm chasing.
Wow. I think that's the first I'm chasing impact. That's the first time we've heard that, I believe, like that. And again, that was a strong statement, which I assume is part of your delivering great openings, delivering compelling content, right? Delivery, it's only everything radio way. You told us what it was, and impact. You had me like that. I was like, impact, what does she mean by that? So,
yeah. So that's my power close.
okay. I like it. Well, listen, Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We've covered top themes we should all be aware of to deliver, once again, everybody, unforgettable messages, along with some interesting categories, including the art of storytelling and overcoming your fear of public speaking, which I think, again, you mentioned 70% of everyone out there has this fear. So we mentioned the links that we'll be posting today for everybody to connect with you on LinkedIn and also your website. But maybe in addition to that, before we close here, is there anything else, Linda, that you'd like to share with the audience?
I'm chasing impact for people to deliver unforgettable messages.
Well, I can tell you one thing. This, I think, should be an unforgettable message, an unforgettable podcast for everybody listening to this. Thank you again so much for giving us the
You.
wisdom, giving us this knowledge, and we'll look forward to following you on social media and waiting for that book launch.
Okay.
Thanks, Linda. Take care. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Chasing Goalpost podcast. Just a reminder for everyone that all of our disclaimers can be accessed via www.chasinggoalposts.com/disclaimers. We'll see you next episode.